Ciao guys, welcome to another episode of the Personal PR Show. And today we're here with Coen again for the second time on the Personal PR Show. How are you, my dear?
Bonjour, Jessica. Ça va bien, ça va bien. I'm doing well.
Wow.
As well as I can be. It's a Saturday evening, right? It's like I'm feeling relaxed. So I'm just happy to just hang out and chill.
Yes, absolutely. Let's hang out together. Yeah, so cool. Thank you for making the time on a Saturday evening for us. For us here, it's nearly 12 p.m. And we're about to have lunch, whereas you are about to have dinner. It's so cool. Okay, yes. So Coen, thank you so much for making it again to the Personal PR Show. And today we're going to talk about how to interview people as a podcaster, right? Because as we can see, you do have a wonderful podcast, which is called Wholehearted. Microphones even, right? Exactly. So you have a lot of expertise in this arena, and that's why we decided to take on this topic today. But guys, you have to know that Coen was already on the show a few weeks ago, and we talked about, what did we talk about? Do you remember, Coen? Because that is another huge area of expertise of yours.
We talk about storytelling, right? We talk about quite a few things, I think. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. We talked about
connecting with people, storytelling.
Yes, that's amazing because Coen is an international speaker, and also he travels a lot, like he jet sets basically for speaking. And like he goes, for example, even on cruises, and he speaks on cruises, like very posh and very luxurious experiences that he gets to have because of his speaking. And certainly one of the main elements of his speaking is storytelling, exactly. And then because you travel so much, speaking all over the world, then you meet a lot of people. So we ended up speaking about networking as well in
That's
that.
right.
Yeah, right. But there are so many things to talk about with you. I would say at the top of my mind, I would have at least 20. And today we're speaking about podcasting, right? But like let's say we are going to focus on a certain aspect of podcasting, which is how to interview people, what questions to ask, what are the right questions to ask, what are good questions to ask, right? So I recently, guys, was on Coen's episode, on Coen's podcast, and our episode was launched yesterday, right, Coen?
Yes,
so
it's not yesterday.
I'll be sure to share with you all. And the questions that he asked me were amazing, and they were so, how can I say, so effective and so piercing as well into my essence, my identity, that I was like, this must be a process that Coen has developed over the past few years. And probably these 10, 15 questions, 20 maybe, are questions that he asks everybody. So as soon as we were done with the episode, I asked him, so is this a process, a sequence of questions that you take people through? Because they're so good, they're so polished as well. They work with one another perfectly. And he was like, no, I just follow the conversation, the flow of the conversation. And I thought, oh my God, you have to come on the Personal PR Show to talk about how you actually ask questions, how you free flow and still manage to ask super effective and piercing questions that really reveal the identity, the essence of the person that you're interviewing. So thank you so much for sharing this with us today, because this is going to be amazing.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm happy to share. So first of all, I'm very flattered and honored that you call me an expert in asking questions. I started my podcast only last year, and I've recorded like 8 episodes so far. So I wouldn't say I'm an expert in this area, but one of the commonalities from all my guests who spoke to me on my podcast say that, Coen, you ask fantastic questions. You know, some of these people have been on several podcasts before, and I think they have always been asked the standard questions, and they just say that, Coen, your questions bring out the best in me. And so I think that's, if one person say that, then okay, it's a compliment. If 2 people say that, possibly it's a coincidence. But if 3 people say that, then possibly there's a pattern there, and there's a gift that I have to embrace. And in fact, today I was giving a keynote speech about imposter syndrome and how we have to embrace compliments. And so this is me really embracing this compliment, and I'm happy to share my process, or if there is a process.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yes. And by the way, where was the keynote today? Because
Singapore.
In Singapore, where you are based, right?
That's
exactly.
Right.
So you don't even have to fly back home now. You're already home.
Yes, that's right. So I'm very
Because we
relaxed
forgot
right
to
now.
mention, guys, that Coen is based in Singapore. Actually, Coen is a very good friend of mine. We've known each other for like 5 or 6 years, and we would see each other regularly, at least once a month when I was still, going to Singapore so often. Yes. I saw Coen more often than my friends here in Zurich, by the way, sometimes even my family. Exactly. Yeah. Yes. Yes. So basically, you said that there could be a process. Maybe it's not, let's say, a very conscious process that you have, or maybe something that you really created by design, but it's something that came about interview after interview, right? What would you say are the main elements of this process, or do you want to walk us through it?
Okay, maybe I'll just share with you, some of the elements, and then I don't really have a kind of a process. I mean, you asked a very good question, right? But I'll just walk through the elements, and I think maybe at the end of the day we can sort of connect the dots, right? So one of the key thing I would say, the key attribute I would say about me is I'm an empath. Of course, back when I was growing up, I never had, the language, the vocabulary to describe or to describe myself as an empath, or as psychologists have evolved and started talking about this as highly sensitive people. So when I was younger, I was a very sensitive person. I would go to a family or relative's place, and I would tell my mom, it's like, I think auntie is not feeling very good today. She's upset about something. And usually my mom or my parents would say to me, nah, you think too much, you're so young, what do you know? And so I was really doubting myself. I was really asking myself, like, am I really able to see things? But more often than not, I was proven to be right. So I realized that I've got a super talent over there, which is the ability to tune into people. And so but you see, as I grew up in Singapore, which is a very highly competitive environment, we go through school, and we have like standardized testing, and a lot of pressures to perform well in school. And what do the schools teach you? They teach you to have the answers, not to have the questions. And so for a long, long time in my life, I have put it, in the back burner. I have sort of like buried that skill of mine, believing that it is not exactly a skill. It is something that annoys people. So I've learned not to ask questions. But as I became a coach, right, I realized that, I have to ask questions, because coaches don't give answers. Coaches ask questions, right? So I have learned how to, ask questions and really listen to what people say, listen to what people don't say. And there are many reasons why they don't say. One is because they don't know how to say it. Two, they don't say because they don't want to hurt anyone. Three, they don't really know that they want to say it in the first place. And so there's many reasons why people don't say what they don't say. And so listening to what people don't say is just as important as listening to what people say. So I realized I think that's the reason why I have married my empathy, my sensitivity with questioning skills to be able to ask questions. But I'm sure there's a lot more as we continue to unpack.
Yes. Oh, yeah. There's so much more to unpack, but it is already amazing. Wow. I love the element of storytelling that you brought into this. If we get on a meta level for a second, yeah, because Coen is so good at storytelling that he manages to put storytelling everywhere. He always manages to tell a story, right? Exactly. What is okay, let's explore this for a second. What do you think is the connection between storytelling and asking questions on a podcast?
That's a great question. I never thought about that, but you see, there are a few things over here. Number one is everyone has a story. And I became very curious about listening to stories of people. And I realized that the stories that people tell are very unique in their own ways, but they generally follow a certain plot, a certain story arc, for want of a better word. So obviously, when we think about storytelling, we think about the hero's journey, and there's research based on Joseph Campbell. But my own research have told me that there are different types of heroes. There are heroes who would fight the dragon, slay the dragon, fight enemies, overcome all obstacles to get to their goal. and that would be the warrior type of hero. But not all heroes are created equal. There are some heroes who, for example, were separated from a loved one from a very young age, and that journey, that quest of that hero is not really to slay dragons and conquer their demons, but their journey is really about reconciliation and reconnecting back with a lost loved one, for example, right? So that is a different hero's journey story. And so I at a very meta level, when I listen to stories, I kind of get a sensing of where that story is going. It's kind of like a movie director, right? It's kind of like a movie producer being able to take a script and realize, okay, what is the premise of this movie? Where is the direction? Where is this movie going? I'm always having that very active mind as I'm listening to stories of people, like, oh, where is this story going? And sometimes I am making my best guess, right? So but sometimes my guesses are wrong, and the story take a surprising turn. But either way, I win, because look, if I take a good guess and I ask the question, and the question leads me down to unearthing even more treasure in that story, then that story becomes very compelling, right? But if my question is down the wrong line, and my guest will say some surprising answers, then I have to be very agile enough to be able to catch that and say, that's interesting. I was wrong about my premise, and I'm willing to then switch directions and follow that person. Then there's the element of surprise. And again, surprise is very powerful in storytelling, because surprise always helps people to learn something important. In the world that we live in today, we are, chat GPT, right? You can get answers in 10 seconds, 12 seconds, right? People are impatient. And so if you want them to learn something, you need to capture their attention. And in order to capture their attention, nothing beats surprise to capture people's attention. So when I ask great questions, kind of like a talk show host, I wouldn't dare say I'm an Oprah Winfrey, but although I wish to be like an Asian Oprah Winfrey, and that's my dream, or an Asian Trevor Noah, that's my kind of dream. So, but I just learned how to ask like really good questions to lead people down different storylines.
Yes, amazing. Oh my God, thank you. Yes, because we were mentioning these two items, and I was like, okay, I'm always fascinated in the connection between two items that we would never think of actually combining, right? So it was let's say an unexpected question, and you answered it brilliantly. So thank you so much, because guys, here everything is spontaneous, right? We're free flowing. Absolutely. Yes. So we have found out that storytelling is very important in order to ask the right questions. We have also seen that actually being a coach is really helpful if we want to be a podcaster who asks great questions, right? Absolutely. Okay, what do you think is another element that makes you or makes people great at asking questions on a podcast?
Okay, so the third element here is something that is a fairly recent development in my life. It's improv. So about 4 years ago, about 4 years and 2 months ago, in December 2018, I was in London learning improvisation theater for the first time for 10 days. I spent 10 days with the guru of improv, Keith Johnston, and it really changed my life. And you must understand this, right? I am a professional speaker. I'm used to speaking with my script. I mean, I don't read my script, but I have scripted my speech. I have PowerPoint slides. I have prompters. But in improv, all of that is thrown out of the window, right? You go on stage, you're given a scenario, and you have to improvise with your partner on stage. And can you imagine how confronting that was for me? I was really completely out of my depth. I was really feeling like a really imposter at the time. I was like, what am I doing here? But I was very glad that I learned improv, because it really opened my world to the idea of, playing with people. And here's the key, right? It's like 10 years ago, for example, imagine this scenario, right? I'm sure some of you can relate to this. 10 years ago, if I was invited to a party, and as an introvert, sometimes I would say whether there's a party that I can contribute to. But if there's a party that I am not really a subject matter expert, the conversations are not really my interest, I would probably say no. But if I said yes, I'm like looking forward to go to the party, have a good time, share what I know. But here's the thing, when the party organizer says, hey, you know what? I've invited person A, and person B and these other people. And 10 years ago, I would have started to feel, oh my God, it's like person B, person C, person A, they are so loud, they are so, outspoken. I don't know if I want to go to the party anymore because I'm going to be outshone. I'm not going to be the star of the show anymore. And I would just find reasons to say, I'm not going to go to the party. But today, if the organizers, hey, you know what? I'm going to introduce you to person A, B, and C. I was like, hey, sure, fine, let's go. Even if the person is more outgoing, the person is more energetic, the person is more outspoken, it's okay. All I need to do is just go there, and because my improv training teaches me to be able to improvise, number one. Number two, teaches me to be able to invite another person into the space, include that person into the space. For example, coexist on the stage together with another actor without killing each other. It's really allowed me to kind of like expand my mental and emotional space in order to include other people. So I call this playing well with others. In the past, I've never really played well with people. I'm very much the individualist and the solo creative genius in an organization or in a team. But now, even as I grow my business, learning how to play well with people and coexist with people without killing each other has really helped me to also build a team and grow my business. So back to podcasting, I think that really helps a lot because it allows me to be so mentally prepared for whatever my guests throw at me. Like I said earlier on, surprise, right? One of the key premises of improv is yes and. So whatever your partner says, you don't say yes, but because you will refute the other person. You kind of go yes and. You kind of like take the idea that they give you and you go along with it and you build on that. Like I said, storytell on that. You just go along with that storyline. And in that way, you actually make your guest, the other person, look good. And I remembered on the podcast that we recorded together, you also asked me back questions like, Coen, what do you think? And I thought that's brilliant because you also make me look good. And so if we are on a journey together in the same space, making each other look good, we're going to have a spectacular episode. We're going to have a spectacular podcast. We're going to have a spectacular performance. But if we are there trying to fight each other, it's going to be disaster. So I think learning improvisation theater has just expanded my emotional and mental space to be able to include more people in whatever they are, however they are, like in all shapes, sizes, and forms.
Yes, I love this. And in particular, I love what you said about making the host or the guest looking good. And if we take the aspect of the host for a second, so let's say that we are a guest on a podcast, we want to make the host look good because, of course, like the host is putting their reputation, so to say, on the line by bringing us onto their platform. And certainly so that's element number one. So we want to kind of publicly appreciate that they gave us this opportunity. So we want to pay them compliments and make them look good. And certainly also, this podcast is going to be, let's say, it's actually created for the audience, right? So if we pay a compliment to the host, actually we are indirectly, Coen, I think, paying a compliment to the audience as well, because the audience is following that particular podcaster, that particular host, right? Exactly. So usually it's something that I say, not every time, but when I'm a guest on a podcast, I greet the host, I greet the audience as well, and I compliment them on their impeccable taste for following the host, right? For example, that in this way, you're actually paying a compliment to both. But going back to you being the podcaster, certainly what you have highlighted is amazing. Like you want to really give the guest an opportunity to look good, to shine, and certainly like the guest, to be honest, if we really think like, let's say, we really want to think about, social media and marketing and so on and reach, then the better we make a guest look on our show, probably the more that guest will promote the episode, right? So, right, because you make me look great. I mean, I would have posted and promoted the episode with you on your podcast anyway, but I know also how good you make me look on your podcast through your amazing questions. So I'm even more incentivized now to show this episode and share it with as many people as possible, right? So I think it's a strategic move as well to make people look good on your show. What do you think?
I wouldn't. Yeah, I always say I wouldn't say it was a strategic move for my part. It's just being a good human being to me. But of course, there is a strategic benefit to that. Now that you mentioned that, I totally agree with you. But it just didn't occur to me that way. Having said that, before I continue, I'd just like to compliment the guest, or rather compliment the listeners right now. You are following the right person, Jessica Fabrizi. She's personal PR. I think personal PR in today's world is very, very important, because what is PR, public relations, right? I think public relations is so important. It's something that AI cannot do yet, right? So I think this personal branding, these are all the elements that AI cannot do. I think there's so much conversation around AI today, and I think this is an absolutely important topic. So see, I learned my lessons well. Thank you. Thank you for teaching me that. Thank you for teaching me that.
Immediately. Pardon?
Thank you for teaching me that, because I just learned something on this call as well.
Oh, thank you. Yes, because at the end of the day, PR is very subtle, right? So we are, of course, I totally understand what you said. I love people as well. I want them to feel good regardless, right, of the ramifications, let's say the visibility ramifications. But at the end of the day, this is my job as well, to grant maximum visibility and to create, let's say, goodwill and good reputation around people. This is what personal PR is all about, right? So basically, like what we highlighted in terms of, the strategic moves, and then if the guest has, been highlighted in their positive qualities, then of course they will be incentivized to share with their audience, blah, blah, blah. Of course, these are all ways and strategies in order to increase and skyrocket and growth hack, so to say, our visibility. Yes, but I totally agree with you. We want people to feel good for the sake of it, number one, right? Because we like people, we enjoy them, and we want to add value to their lives, definitely.
That's a great point. I just learned something new again. Because I cannot say that I'm not strategic at all, right? It's like I'm a pretty strategic person. I mean, in business, you have to be strategic, right? It's like if you make a wrong strategic move, it can actually bring the business down. And sometimes, a few strategic moves made well can actually skyrocket your business. So I wouldn't say I'm not a strategic person. I'm a strategic person in my business. It's just that at a point in time, it just didn't occur to me to be a strategic move. But now that you mention it, yeah, it is a strategic move. Love it. I just learned it. I just learned something new. Isn't it awesome? We learn from each other.
We learn from each other. Exactly. Every single conversation that we have is so enriching in both directions. And it is amazing because we have witnesses to our conversation. So people get to learn with us as well. I think podcasting is a great opportunity to, learn from the guests and at the same time learn from both parties involved to learn, and then the audience is learning what everybody involved is learning.
Exactly. I got one more final element if I may share.
Yes, please.
I think the final element is something that is a very, very powerful tool that I learned from neuro-linguistic programming, NLP. And it's the idea of chunking. Chunking is, based on the idea that we process information in bite-sized chunks. But of course, you can chunk up. When you chunk up, you're talking about being more general and more, a big picture. When you chunk down, you're being more specific. And when you chunk across, you're kind of like, moving across different topics within the same category. And chunking across is very good for finding alternatives. So sometimes if I know a particular topic, right, is sort of like exhausted, it's juice, and I'll just kind of like chunk across very, very quickly just to change the topic. It's like, oh, this reminds me of something else. And so that's a great way to kind of like keep the energy flowing when you're inviting people on a podcast, when you're questioning, when you're asking questions, you're keeping the energy of the conversation flowing by just being able to strategically chunk sideways across, changing the topic to keep the energy going. But when you find a topic that you feel that may be a little controversial, it's always good to just ask a more big picture questions like, what do you feel about this? Keep it open-ended, without being too detailed. Why? Because sometimes if a topic is either controversial or topic is something that may not always be comfortable for people to discuss right off the bat, then it's good to kind of like keep it general first to help people to warm up, to also help the audience to understand the context being discussed. So I think that's something that has to be done very strategically. But of course, if you find a particular topic that you can see, the eyes of the speaker or the guest light up, their facial expression change, or they become more animated and they started speaking faster, or they started telling more stories, then you possibly realize that is a topic that's very important to them. It's a topic that they are so passionate about. And that's where you want to chunk down. You want to go into more details. It's like, great, tell me more. It's like, whoa, wow, how exactly did you feel at that very moment in time? What did he say? For example, right? If it's a story that's very exciting, it's like, tell me, what did he say? How did he say it? Right? So we go into the details. So I think having that ability to, like I said earlier on, bringing everything together, empathy, being a coach, asking great questions, learning to invite people into your space as an improviser, being able to flow with them, and finally finding opportunities, to add energy to the conversation by either chunking up, chunking down, or chunking across. I think that's a kind of conversational agility that is absolutely necessary. So there you go. It's like so many of these different elements that I'm sort of like mashing all of them up in order to kind of like ask great questions. So in a sense, I never run out of questions to ask, in a sense, because I'm curious as a person. So with that curiosity, the empathy, and all that skill sets that I just shared, that's what I bring to the table.
Yes, in a brilliant way. Oh my God, this is so amazing. Let me chunk down a little bit here. So basically, something that I love that you said, a term that, I don't know, maybe you created, maybe it's your own neologism, conversational agility. Conversation agility. Is it something that you heard of before, or did you make it up now?
I make it up. I made it up when, interestingly enough, a Swiss pharmaceutical company was in Singapore. They were doing a kind of like an offsite retreat, and I think it was about 4 days. And when they gave a call to me and say, hey, do you have a half-day program to do with my team of salespeople? And very quickly, I was able to understand their needs, and they said, we just need them to be able to have conversations with people when they are running exhibitions, when they are going to these networking events. And they asked me what topic would be interesting for these people. And I said, since there are people in the pharmaceutical industry, they are subject matter experts. Of course, they are not medical people, but they're salespeople, but they know their products very well. I think whatever training is not centered around the product itself, but around the needs of the healthcare, of hospitals, of healthcare professionals. And so I came up with this term, conversation agility, and it's stuck since.
This is amazing. This is something that must be used more often.
Yeah.
I mean, I see already you giving a masterclass about how to ask great questions as a podcaster, and you leverage this concept of conversation agility. This is so right. Good.
Yes.
Yes. And this could actually, as you just mentioned, this could be brought into the arena of networking as well.
Oh, absolutely. I do that because I'm an introvert, right? Asking great questions is actually the absolute survival tip of an introvert. Why? Because you do not want to be doing the talking. So you see, here's the thing. And recently I have this awareness, this key insight. There's a lot of talk about listening skills and active listening and everything like that. But we often forget that what precedes listening is asking a great question. Because if you ask a great question, it enhances the quality of your listening.
Yeah.
For example, if I ask you a question like, how's the weather of Switzerland right now? And you're going to say something fine. Okay, so the quality of my listening is not very interesting because I'm listening to 1 or 2 words like fine, the weather is fine. And so that's it, right? The conversation stops there. So I don't have the pleasure of listening to something more interesting. But if I precede that by asking a great question that really I mean, maybe the word is like kind of arouse your excitement and your passion, and you'll be like, oh, Coen, thank you so much for that question. I've got to tell you about this time I did this, I did that, and I now have the pleasure, maybe even to sit back with a glass of wine and listen to a great story unfold because I asked a great question.
this is so good. This is so good, Coen, that your masterclass shouldn't be, I think, it shouldn't be about, oh yeah, how to ask good questions as a podcaster and then you introduce the concept of conversation agility. No, I think the masterclass should be directly, explicitly about conversation agility. That should be the title. You could talk for a whole hour just about this. This is amazing.
I think I can run a 2-day class on this. Well,
Yes,
we should start taking enrollments now. Yeah.
I will come. Yeah, for people who want to work network better, for people who want to podcast better, like so many different audiences. This is amazing. Okay, you have to come back to the show and we'll do a deep dive in conversation agility. What do you think?
For sure. There's a lot that can be said about that because it's a topic that I'm very passionate about. Recently, I have a friend from Malaysia, KL, came down to Singapore. He is one of the top copywriters in the world, like top. And he is actually advising a country, which I wouldn't mention too much. I don't want to give away too much. He is actually advising a country, a developing country, on country branding. So you see, here we are talking about personal branding, company branding. You know, this guy is talking about country branding, right? And so I was like, what a brilliant person. And whenever he's in town in Singapore, I would always want to meet up with him, have a good meal. We are both foodies. But the other day, he introduced another friend to me, and I've never met the guy before. And I kid you not, we were just sitting on that conversation, on that table, having dinner, and the conversation just flowed from exotic meats, exotic food, exotic places, exotic ancient traditional culture in some part of Borneo and Sulawesi, Indonesia, and all that, right? It's like the conversations just flowed, and I really, really enjoyed it. And we kind of say that we don't often have conversations like that because sometimes a lot of our conversations surround, work, family, career, business. I just really enjoy, conversations where we learn so much from each other by asking great questions and being great listeners and being very curious.
Yes, exactly. Which goes back to one of the first elements that you mentioned, factors that you mentioned, which is curiosity and empathy. Yes, and I think the two have to go together as well. Curiosity and empathy. Would you say so? Because I think some people are curious but are not really empathetic. So maybe they ask questions which are a little bit nosy, right? Would you think?
Fascinating. I never thought about that mashup before, right? It's like, if you're empathetic without being curious, then what happens is that you take on other people's emotions, right? You take on other people's emotions because you're not unable to create separation. It's one thing to be empathetic about people, maybe, for example, someone's going through a hard time, but you also be able to stand from a very detached perspective and be curious about it and say, oh, I'm so sorry that you're going through a hard time. Can you share more with me about how is it coming up for you? How are you feeling right now? How are you coping? And really, really listen. I think the key word here is listen, right? Being mindful, being present, and really listen. If you ask a question, you want to be curious as well. You don't just ask a question for the sake of asking a question. And so a lot of times if people are empathetic and without being curious, they kind of take on other people's emotions into themselves. And that's not healthy. And if you are curious without empathetic, like you say, you either come across as poking around, being too nosy, or people will start to realize that you're just fishing for information. For example, if you are kind of like asking questions just to be able to fit into the different filing cabinets of your information gaps in your brain, then people are just going to feel after a while like, why are you fishing for answers? Are you like trying to find out something? Are you a spy or whatever, right? So people start to feel a little interrogated and they start to put up their defenses. So I think both of them really have to come together. And wow, I've never seen it before that way. Thanks for bringing that up. I think I should create a kind of like a 2x2 matrix around that.
Yes, exactly. I'm just reflecting on what it is that you bring up, right? So you bring up all of these factors, and then I ask you, okay, how do you think that we can combine this factor with this factor? So all I'm doing is actually reflecting back what it is that you are saying, but just with another formulation. And then these amazing ideas of yours just come up. Amazing. Yes.
I think people often have this creativity myth, like, I don't think I'm a creative person. They have this belief that to be a creative person, you either have to like invent the iPhone like Steve Jobs, or you have got to, be like Van Gogh, Da Vinci or Picasso, But no, I think to to be creative, it's really about taking two things and putting them together. One of my favorite is chocolate. I love chocolate. Peanut butter. I love peanut butter. Chocolate, peanut butter, Reese chocolate, right? It's like, and now you think about it, it's like a no-brainer, but you have to think about it. Somebody came up with this idea to put these two together, because before that, they were two separate things. So if you're able to combine two things together, you'll be able to create, exponentially more value for people, whether you're in business, whether you're an employee in a corporate workplace, you will become an immensely valuable person.
Oh my God, thank you for bringing this up, because I've been talking about this phenomenon for a year, especially with my students, and I call it unique pairings, right? So it's a pairing, it's a combination of two elements, but it's unique because it's not something that you see usually. Maybe if you take the two elements separately, they are usual, right? But if you put them together, this is something that is not usual, and this is where the value is created. And I usually use this technique for thought leadership when we're looking for your breakthrough idea, because a lot of people are like, yeah, thought leadership, I need to be innovative, but how can I be innovative? Like the Leonardo da Vinci's of the world that you mentioned, I'm not that person, and so on. And I'm like, it's not that difficult. Let's find your unique pairings. This is one of the ways to find a breakthrough idea that is not out there yet, right? So we take two things that belong to your personal brand, right? So your personal professional brand, and then we put them together, and then usually of course, we create your personal brand, but more than that, we also go into your breakthrough idea, which is something that they will spread into the world, right?
But here's the thing, right? Here's the thing. What you need is really a sparring partner of sorts, a conversational sparring partner like you, right? It's like, I've been talking about empathy and curiosity for such a long time, right? It's kind of like part of my ACE model, right? It's like authenticity, curiosity, empathy, ACE, right? But it always occurred to me that I'm talking about them as separate things, but it takes somebody, right? It takes somebody who has that ability, that creativity, or that perception, that discernment to be able to see that and ask that question. You see, Jessica, you are also demonstrating the power of questions. The power of questions to shift my perspective, the power of questions to help me see something I've never seen before. And that itself is life-giving.
Yes, thank you so much. And this is exactly, Coen, how I felt when a few weeks ago we recorded my episode on the personal, on your show, the Wholehearted podcast, right? Exactly. I felt at the end of this hour, I felt that not only had I shared about me with you and with your audience and with the world, but also with myself, because there were, certain things came out that even I wasn't aware of. Right. So that's amazing. It's a journey of self-discovery as well.
Wow. I really enjoy talking to you, and we really help each other really to explore new avenues, unearth new values.
Yes, absolutely. That's why you have to come back to the Personal PR Show. And about 20 things. You have to come back to the Personal PR Show at least once a month. And next time we can talk about conversation agility. What do you think?
Wow, either that by the end of these 20 episodes, I would have written 20 books, or I would have some kind of like a MBA in one book or something like that.
Exactly. We can definitely give you all of the transcripts of every conversation, definitely, if you want.
Wow, thank you. That's very generous.
Of course. And but there is one question that I ask everybody before we part ways for the day. So you have already answered this question because you have already come to the Personal PR Show once. So the question, probably maybe you remember, is what is something that I haven't asked you over the past, I don't know how many minutes, let's say 45 minutes, but I should have asked you, Coen?
Wow, I think that's a great question. It's an evergreen question, because every time you ask a question, you're going to get different answers, right? I mean, that Coen that spoke to you about 2-3 months ago is a different version of the Coen that speaks to you today, right? It's like we're always growing and evolving. So with regards to that question, I need to think about that. That's a great question. It always stumps me. But I think that's a great question. I always ask that question to my clients or my sales meetings. I don't know, man. It's like, I don't know what you want to know, but I'm actually very, very, very curious to know what have I shared that is of value to your audience, right? I don't know how many people are watching live on this show right now. And if there's any questions, any comments, any interactions, I would actually like to know, like, what are the questions that they have, because sometimes, when we are hosts on a show like that, we just get on a show, we ask great questions, we have a great conversation, and no doubt this is one of the best conversations I've had for some time. But sometimes we don't know whether people, the audience, are going to find this like, oh my God, this is useful, or kind of like these ideas just kind of fly over their head. So I think a very, very good question to ask me is like, perhaps like, what would you like to ask our audience? And for me right now, I'm going to ask your audience, like, what is it that you want to learn? Let's say we're going to be doing that conversational agility show. What is it that you want to learn, audience? What is it that you want to learn about conversation agility? What are some of your challenges around conversation agility? What are your challenges around being tongue-tied at conversations? Either is it at a dinner, at a networking, and a when you're talking to your management, your bosses, what is it that that makes you tongue-tied? What are some challenges that you have? And what is it that you like to learn so that you'll be able to keep conversations flowing, the energy of the conversations constantly high and engaged? What is it they want to learn? Let me know prior to that show, so that when we get on a show, whatever we share with you will be useful to you.
This is amazing, and I will certainly instruct Chair, our lovely relationship manager, to create maybe 1 week before our next episode, to create a post, like a prompt in a personal PR group, so that we can gather all of the questions. And then, of course, if people want, they can also show up live to our next episode. Yes, let's do that. Thank you so much. This is already great preparation. The preparation for the next episode already starts now. So guys, if you're watching this episode now, then on the replay, or when you have time, then let us know already, maybe here in the comment section of this post. It's gonna be amazing. Yes, great. And it's great. That's a great tool for market research as well, isn't it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah.
Oh, you're a genius. We can really tell that you are a business strategist on top of being a communications coach and trainer and everything else. There's so much to learn from you every single time. Awesome.
Like I said, we're always mashing up stuff, right? And that's how we evolve. That's how we continue to stay ahead of the game. I personally think that there isn't a more important time for us to continuously stay ahead of the game. I'm really having a conversation today over lunch after my keynote speech with one of the participants around how AI is going to change the way the world writes, the way the world interacts, the way the world, even educates the children in the school. So we're also even talking a lot about how we can use AI to our benefits, how AI can generate stuff for us and shave several hours of our work week just by what it can do. So I'm always all about staying ahead of the game. And I'm always thinking about how can I, for example, use ChatGPT and add a personalized flavor to that, because what AI can do is to attempt to personalize something. For example, I might ask AI to write this in Jessica Fabrizi's voice. And if Jessica Fabrizi is very famous and AI has researched you enough, I can possibly do that, right?
Oh,
but the thing is, but at the end of the day, it is still not Jessica Fabrizi. So what Jessica puts out is personal, is personalized. And so I think we need to really constantly evolve and be able to mash up two different skills, two different spaces at the same time. That's how we can continue to stay ahead of the game.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my God, this is going to be another of our topics in the next few months, how to constantly stay ahead of the game when it comes to, I don't know, something like personal PR, personal business, personal something, right? Because we have to niche down as well, of course, not just stay ahead of the game in general, but in a certain area. Yes. Oh my God, we already have so many ideas. I have to write them down immediately. I have to, once we finish this episode, I have to jot them down immediately, because then I'm always scared when I get a great idea. I'm always scared that I will lose it. And I'm like, no, I have to hold on to you. You shouldn't go away. I have to act on you now. But it's all about ideas. Like our services are intangible, right? We are service providers. We are thought leaders. Our value is expressed in ideas. So as soon as we get an idea, we have to jot it down immediately. We shouldn't let it go. What do you think? Does it happen to you as well?
Absolutely. And one of the best ways to actually do that is actually to find someone to talk about it. Like right now, I'm talking to you about it. And if you think that whatever I shared with you has given you a lot of value today, go use it and write to me and let me know. I think you can get my contacts from Jessica Fabrizi in the show notes. And write to me and let me know how it goes, because I want to know, like I said, whatever I shared, has it helped you? And you'll be thinking, Coen, it's like, why are you giving away all this information for free, right? So why are you so generous? I'm like, look, at the end of the day, we are thought leaders, we are service providers. A lot of what we do is intangible. But if you find the ideas useful, go do it and let me know it works, so that at least I know it works, right? It doesn't just work for me. Sometimes, it's easy for people to say, yeah, of course you can do it because you're Coen, but it doesn't work for me. But go, I encourage you. Mel Robbins talk about the 5 seconds rule, right? Just go do it. Just if you have an idea, just go pursue it, just go do it at least once, and then you can get immediate feedback about it works or not. And if it works, you kind of go, hey, it works. And then you will be more motivated to continue doing that, right? And so here's the thing, just go out there and apply. Otherwise, these ideas will just be gone. And I'm happy to share all this information with you, because look, at the end of the day, if you want to make all of this work together, kind of like fly formation, then you need a coach, maybe you need a consultant, you need someone to work with you, to shave several hours, maybe months of your learning curve. There you can find Jessica Fabrizi, right? So she's great at what she does in PR, or if you're looking for something like to tell your story, to inspire people, to build your personal brand, I'm happy to work with you. Let's talk.
Yes, definitely. Absolutely. This is amazing. And something that I really, really liked is when you said, okay, just go do it. The 5 second rule, just go do it. Like, just get it done, right? This is something that my friends and I define as, we call it, just freaking ship it. Ship the thing, right? Exactly. Yeah, just ship it. So we even have
ship
a club.
SHIP, right? Ship it, right?
Ship it. Yes,
yeah,
exactly.
Ship it.
So when you ship, it comes from the gaming industry. Basically, they have to ship something new, and probably the software developers, they have to ship this new thing. In gaming. I don't know the details of that story, but this is apparently the origin of this expression. And we just use it. So basically, we have this club. It's a WhatsApp group that some friends and I have. We all have this attitude of just getting things done, even if it's not perfect. Just ship it. 80-20, I don't know, done is better than perfect. We just call it just freaking ship it. And then at the end of each day, we say, okay, today I shipped this and this and this and this. We just launched things that weren't perfect, but at least we started, we got the car moving, and we started getting, let's say, feedback and insights and so on, and intelligence. And then also, of course, you can always correct course, tweak on that and so on, but just get the thing done first. Just get started.
Beautiful. Yeah. When you say ship it, right, the first word that came to me is Seth Godin's shipping creative work, shipping great work. I am a big fan of Seth Godin, And by the way, I am in a journey of writing my book, and it's been taking so long forever, right? But recently, I've really gotten into the habit of really testing my material, and because I want to write a useful book. And there's this great book, I think, by Bob Fitzpatrick, that everyone should read if you want to write a book. It's called Write Useful Books. That's the title of his book, Write Useful Books. If you want your book to be a bestseller, you want your book to be recommended on the top of the list of people, on the top of mind of people, then you want to make sure that your book is useful. Too many authors write books from their own perspective of an expert. So there's kind of like the curse of genius, or a curse of knowledge. They are writing from their space of expertise, but for the average person on the street, it means squat. So which is why today on this podcast, I'm saying that if what I shared on this podcast and you do it, and if it works, write to me and let me know it works, so that I know, hey, this works, because it works for me.
Yeah, well, it works for other people as well. Absolutely perfect. Oh my God! And by the way, Coen, would you like to join the Just Freaking Ship It Club? I can nominate you. Because we're very selective. We really want only people that are really, marrying and putting into practice this philosophy.
Okay, looks like a great club that I can really join, because for many years I have had this imposter syndrome, and on the other side of things, I have this perfectionistic streak. And so for many years, I've been having this podcast idea for so many years. And last year, when I turned 41, I decided, you know what, just freaking ship it. Right, just do it. Yeah.
Exactly. Amazing. Okay, so you really qualify for the group.
Okay, thanks. I'm so honored to be qualified. It feels like
Yeah.
I'm qualified to Harvard or something.
Exactly. Yeah, it's even better, right? Yes, because like bias to action, they call it also bias to action, is everything. Yes.
Wow.
Oh my God, this is amazing. So I will propose you now to the other members, and certainly they will say yes. So Coen, this unfortunately marks the end of our conversation today, but we have already promised officially and publicly that you will be back on the Personal PR Show very soon.
Thank you. Thank you, Jessica.
Awesome.
Grazie mille.
Grazie a te. Merci beaucoup. And we will see you very soon. And have a lovely evening in Singapore.
Great. And I'll be in Bangkok next week, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yes, exactly. So cool.
Ciao.
Awesome. Ciao, ciao. Take care. Bye, guys. Thank you so much for watching us.
Bye.
And we'll see you very soon on the next episode of the Personal PR Show. Ciao.
Bye.